Looking to invest? Start your journey by exploring exchange-traded funds with Global X ETFs. Exchange-traded funds, or ETFs for short, create baskets of stocks, bonds, and other assets that you can buy in a single trade. Global X specializes in ETFs that track emerging trends, like the rise of artificial intelligence, as well as strategies aimed to generate income potential. Visit globalxetfs.com to discover how you can get started.
Dennis, it's so great to be with you, president of IBC Bank. I wanted Dennis to come on because he brought me to the border in Laredo, Texas, a couple of weeks ago. It was a fascinating trip. I had not been to the border in Texas. I'd been to the border in San Diego many, many, many years ago. But it was an amazing experience to see, Dennis, what's going on there at the border. And why don't you explain to people what's going on at the border? And by the way, you're a very pro-free trade guy. One of the things when we visited with you, Dennis, I came away really appreciating the importance of the U.S., Canada, Mexico free trade agreement. North America should be a free trade zone. It's good for all three of our countries, and we want to be united as North America against Europe and Asia and some of these other places. So give our listeners a sense of what is going on the border. What I saw was Laredo is booming. I've never seen so many trucks in my whole life. An amazing port of commerce. So what is your takeaway?
Well, thank you very much, Steve, for having me. And also thank you very much for coming to the border. I know we've talked about that for some time since we've been connected for a while, but you actually did it, which few people have done.
It's a great trip, a really great trip. Thank you for arranging it.
Yeah. I applaud you for doing that. Now we call Steve Moore the border expert. So we got you in the club. So
well, I think I've been to the border more often than Kamala has been.
That's actually to see things and spend time. You spent hours, and you were standing out there in that 105-degree temperatures watching these trucks come across the border, and so you understand the reality of border commerce and the struggle and the challenges that you face because you were there on the scene, watching and participating, which none of these people do, and I salute you for that. And so I hope you'll become an advocate and continue. I know you're a free trader, and we're free traders. As I've talked to the president about reciprocal trade, and I get a little frustrated when he runs off on some of these little rabbit trails he goes on, but we'll deal with that later. But yes.
So hold on, Dennis, can I just interrupt you for 1 second? So you sent me a photograph. You just were with Trump a few days ago. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, we
so
were.
How is he doing? How's his demeanor? Is he holding up? He's got an exhausting schedule. How was he?
Yeah. He was going since 6:30 in the morning. He started in Midland and then ended up in Houston for the afternoon evening event. I don't know how he does it. I'm older than he is, and I run out of gas pretty quick. But he's amazing fortitude. I just can't believe. Yeah, and he had a good round table, and we went in for a big speech, and he talked about all the deficiencies of government. Really, he was describing some of the terrible things that go on in government. Talking about how much money they wanted to spend on 2 new Air Force, Air Force One airplanes, and all the waste on and government purchase programs and stuff that we need to deal with. And also, obviously mentioned Elon Musk and the idea of trying to create some efficiency in government. So it was a very good meeting. We had a great turnout, a lot of energy and passion involved there. So it was, I consider, very successful. I was happy to be part of the host committee for that event as well, as we were a few weeks before with J.D. Vance when he came through Texas, and we introduced him into Laredo.
Did they come to Houston, or did they come to Laredo, or where did you see him?
Well, Vance came to Laredo and also San Antonio, Houston, and then Trump came to Midland and in the morning and had an event there, and then came over to Houston for the afternoon, early evening event. So he had a full day, lots of travel.
Dennis, just so my listeners know, because as you know, we're here on the East Coast. We have New York and the DC metro area and people up as far as north as Maine. So many of them probably have not been to the border. So it's right. Laredo is right there on the border. There's There's those bridges over the Rio Grande that bring in both by rail and by trucks, massive amount of merchandise every day. And one of the things that we saw that disturbed me was, these trucks could be lined up, 2 miles long, waiting. You said sometimes they wait 3 to 4 hours to get across the border. It seems to me that's an amazingly inefficient system. But explain to our folks what you're seeing there at the border.
Well, folks, I'll never start the discussion. Laredo is now the largest port in America. So people would think,
wow,
hey, Los Angeles, maybe Chicago, maybe New York, maybe Houston. But Laredo is the largest port in America. We cross 20,000, more or less, 18-wheelers a day, which you firsthand saw.
20,000? Did you say 20,000?
20,000. You saw them. You said, I've never seen so many trucks all my life. And you can testify and validate that you saw probably incredible. That many yourself.
Yeah.
So we are number one port. We cross about $1 billion of trade a day. And we have continued to grow at low single digits and sometimes high double-digit numbers. And the problem we've had in that congestion you see is because we have not had the cooperation and the intensity that the federal government has to play to support the infrastructure that's needed to handle this commerce. And obviously, right. Since NAFTA was put in place about 30 years ago, subsequently amended to into USMCA, that trade activities continue to grow in this North American economy. And this is where I think the public and our future administrations need to look at is that we have now a North American economy, Mexico, United States, and Canada, that has now been woven into our society over 30 years. And unfortunately, that genie has jumped out of the bottle and you can't put it back. And so those who want to stop that and kill that have to really step back and say, hey, wait a minute. We have so many issues. I sent you an article here the other day just describing one little complexity of a firm out of Minnesota. I don't know if you got the chance to read that, talking about the fact that these tariffs on Chinese goods, who were just slapped across the board without any specificity, resulted in him having to pay so much money for certain parts that he had to get to complete his assembly and manufacturing operations in the United States. So that cost pushed his price of his product, his end product, up to where he wasn't competitive anymore. So I say to the public and I say to your listeners, this trade issue is the devil is in the details, and you must really pay attention to it. I've spent 40 years of my life working in international trade. Our company does about 40% of our business international. Our companies are worldwide companies now. We're global, and that genie has left the bottle, and so you can't put it back together. So those of us like yourself who are free traders, but I agree 100% with President Trump. We need reciprocity. We need fair trade deals, and we need deals that are going to help and support the American economy, and I think he's right on target there. And if we use tariffs to get to some of those agreements, well, that's fine. But tariffs as a practice, I don't agree with.
So I'm talking to Dennis Nixon, who is the president of one of the biggest banks in the Southeast, IBC, right there on the border. And I did have an amazing trip, Dennis, and you learn a lot from just seeing all this stuff firsthand. We've only got a couple minutes left. What do we need to do? What did you tell Donald Trump? How do we make sure you don't have an illegal immigration problem there in Laredo, right? It's not a point of entry for. It's mostly commerce that's coming in, right?
Yeah, most of the crossings are going upriver from us in the Eagle Pass area and downriver from us in the Rio Grande Valley. Yeah, one of the things that we talked about, Steve, when you were here, was our Bridge 4-5, which we're talking about. We needed to have that big new complex. It's on the southeast side of our city. Right. That there's 7,000 acres that's basically been set aside for this massive logistics crossing center that we want to build there. Thursday, we got the permit from the President of the United States to get that bridge going. That has been a 20-year project.
Wow.
20 years to get that permit. So now we're going to take the next step to build that bridge, which will open up a massive new level of efficiency and catapult commerce forward. So those efficiencies takes cost out of the market and keep our consumer prices down. So that's why this efficiency is so important to this process.
So one last question. Well, two quick questions before we have to take a break. Dennis Nixon is with us, the president of IBC Bank. Number one, I keep hearing from some of my friends in Texas that the Democrats think that they're going to turn Texas blue this year. What do you say to that?
I don't think so. I do have concerns because our big cities, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin, are pretty much blue. We have seen a pattern over the last few election cycles, for instance, like we've lost all of our basically Republican judges in these blue cities. The Democrats have swept all the conservative judges out of office. We have elected district judges, state judges here in Texas, and that's a concern. And then these elections are getting closer, as obviously you saw when Beto ran against Cruz, that was a very close race. And we expect the race this time around for Cruz to be tight as well. He's running a good race, and Ted has become I think a very aggressive and strong senator for business. He's taken a little bit of his edge off that I think he had early on in his career, and he's become much more connected to our ideas and thinking, and he reaches out. And he's a much more dynamic leader now, and I think he's getting his stride. So it'd be horrible to have that happen, that he'd lose his election, but I don't think he will.
Yeah, I think he's going to win.
I think good ground to win, but it could be close.
It could be. Well, Dennis, I really so appreciate you bringing me out to the border. Folks, if you ever get a chance to do a border trip so you can see what Kamala Harris has not seen, what's really going on at our border, it is really quite an experience. And thank you so much, Dennis, for arranging that trip. Folks, this is the More Money Show on WABC.
Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice.